Hello, the artist Frank Auerbach died on Monday, and so in his memory, here's a video that I made back in April when he had an exhibition on at Somerset House. Hello, Frank Auerbach was 93 yesterday. He's one of our greatest living British artists, often ranked alongside Lucian Freud and Francis Bacon. He has an exhibition on at the moment at the Courtauld Gallery of his charcoal portraits, and he's also well known for street scenes. But his whole style is what can only be described as completely obsessive. He works 7 days a week, many hours each day, even still at the age of 93, and he goes on working on an artwork, sometimes for months, until he feels it's right to stop. With the oils, he will paint over and over and over on the same canvas, sometimes completely changing a picture, but just by painting over what was there before. Just determined to get it right. He was asked in an interview recently what it was that drove him on, and he said, well, I'm dissatisfied with what I've done. I want to get it right. And the same with his charcoal portraits. He goes on and on with adding charcoal, adding it until he gets to the point where he's ready to stop. And when asked how he knows when it's time to stop, he says that he stops partly when the piece of art has a life of its own, but also when he's surprised by what he sees. He feels that he's driven by what he calls a muse, and he says this is a complete mystery. He doesn't know what it is that gives him the ideas, that drives him on, and so sometimes he is surprised by what comes out as he goes over and over a painting and tries to make it even better than it was before. He talks about the muse, which inspires all sorts of people. He says it's the most unlikely people that the muse seems to turn into great poets or great artists, but it's something there which drives him on in this kind of obsessive way. I think that sometimes being obsessed with something can be looked down upon. We often feel that if it's we who are obsessed, that we kind of taken over by it, that we can't stop doing what we are doing, and it doesn't always feel comfortable to be out of control in that way. We've got to keep going with a project, or persisting in a relationship, or carrying on a particular way of living, because this is the way we do it and this is how we want to do it, and others may think we're being a bit obsessive, and indeed we think we are ourselves often, but we just keep going. And I think if this is a creative thing, then there's no harm in it, because possibly we are harnessing that muse within us, not necessarily to produce a great poem or great work of art, but just to create a life, a life that is ours. And we're responding to something within us which is making us do this thing, and it can be very creative. Sometimes it can be damaging, and sometimes we need to be very careful to make sure that we're not obsessed by something which is harming us or harming other people. But I think there is one criterion which is particularly important as we look at our own lives and ask ourselves, is this obsession that we have something that we want to allow to continue to have a grip on us? At the end of this interview that I referred to with Frank Auerbach, he was asked what keeps him going. Why at the age of 93 is he still creating works of art at considerable lengths, like he has been doing all for the last 70 plus years? And he says, because it's fun. And I think as long as our obsessions still give us a sense of fun, then they're almost certainly going to be creative and good for us. It isn't the only criterion, but it's one well worth looking at.